Hi, my name is Claire and I work in the Students' Union Advice Centre. During this webinar, we will explain what accommodation options are available to you. We will provide information about the process of searching and signing up for accommodation so you can make an informed decision when choosing where to live. It is important that you get yourself ready and have all the information to hand, so it's fantastic that you are listening to this webinar. The first thing to say is don't panic about where you're going to live. There are lots of people on hand to help you. UWE offers a limited amount of accommodation on campus and in the city centre. However, these are unfortunately now full and you must look for private accommodation. All of the information in this webinar is here to help you do just that. It can be hard to know where to start to look for a house in a city that you might not know very well. So the Advice Centre have teamed up with StudentPad. StudentPad is an online accommodation platform and has a variety of rooms to rent, so you can browse in your own time. And if you see a room that looks good, you can contact the landlord directly. Search UWE StudentPad on any search engine. The Advice Centre can check contracts through before you sign them, so please just get in touch with us. Scams or false offerings can happen, and we do not want any of our students to fall foul of a scam, so do take note of our advice. The Find a Flatmate group on Facebook is a good place to start if you want to live in a house or flat with other UWE students. You might find a group of students who need one more person to fill their house, so request to join the group and see what posts there are. As most landlords are accustomed to the academic year starting in September, you may find that you are only offered a 6-month contract, meaning that in the summer you'll need to explore the possibility of either renewing or finding alternative accommodation for the remainder of your course. Again, if you are bringing your family, you will need to secure accommodation before they arrive in the UK. UWE does not provide family accommodation, so you will have to rent privately. To help you in your search, please contact us in the Advice Centre for a list of agencies in Bristol who have family accommodation. We must stress, however, that the university is unable to secure private accommodation for you, so please make sure you listen to our Students with Dependents webinars for more detailed information, which covers accommodation and other issues you'll need to consider in more detail. There are some very important questions to ask yourself when you start looking for accommodation. Where do you want to live? Do you want to be close to campus or nearer to the city centre, on a bus route or near to your children's school or your partner's work? There are various places to look. You can try UWE StudentPad on any search engine, the Find a Flatmate group on Facebook, University of Bristol Letting Service, and the Advice Centre have a list of local agencies in Bristol. By law, the letting agent must be a member of a government-backed redress scheme. This is important because it gives you an official route to complain about the agency if you're not happy with them. If the landlord or agent is part of an accreditation scheme, this is good for you because it means the property and how it is managed will need to adhere to certain standards. Have a think about what you're looking for. Do you want a house, a flat, outside space? Do you want to be on a busy street or a quieter location? Do you want to be near to shops and other amenities? One of the most important questions to ask yourself is, what is your budget? Think about your income and expenditure on a weekly basis, and if the property is too expensive for your budget, then you can't rent it. And remember that the cost will be higher the more people you have to rent for. We cover costs of living on the next slide. Check if you need to provide a guarantor. This is a UK-based person who can guarantee your rent and knows the importance of understanding what a joint and several contract means if another tenant in the property defaults. Housing Hand and UK Guarantor are two companies we know of who can act as a guarantor for you for a small fee. It is perfectly normal for a landlord or agency to ask to see your passport or visa. Landlords in England are required to check their tenant's immigration status before granting a tenancy agreement to make sure that the tenant has a right to rent. And we'll come on to this in more detail on the next slide. You can evidence your right to rent using the UK Government Check-in Service. To do this, you will need your date of birth and either your biometric resident permit, your biometric resident card or your passport or national identity card. The service will generate a 9-character long share code for you that can be passed on to a landlord and enables them to access your right to rent information. There is plenty of guidance available to help you through this process. This page gives you some of the examples of the costs you should be expecting to pay while living in Bristol. It is important that you factor this into your planning so that you know you can afford to live here. This chart includes unavoidable expenses such as rent, food and bills, but it does not include discretionary spending on leisure, clothes and eating out, for example. Please note that these figures have been calculated for summer 2022 and are subject to change, but will hopefully give you a rough idea. If you are looking for part-time work to help with living costs, then the Students' Union has a job shop. It might take some time for you or your dependent to secure a job, so make sure you factor this into your budget and won't be relying on this money for the first few months. It's important to note that rent in Bristol varies significantly by area, so make sure you do your research. The location and accommodation you choose really does have an impact on how well you settle into university life and succeed with your studies. Your course timetable is set by the university and you will be expected to attend lectures in person, not online. Your timetable cannot be individualised, so it's important to research properly where you want to live and that it suits your budget. And consider journey length, timetable and ticket prices, as well as other logistics you might need to factor in, such as childcare, schools or employment opportunities for you or your partner. Bristol is well connected to neighbouring cities where you may find the cost of renting is cheaper. Remember, if you are looking at this option, you must be very clear on how you will commute and how much it will cost you. We have gathered some general information about train journeys here, but please visit the GWR website to check your journey route and timetables. Note that the prices shown here are for peak journey times, and if you are travelling at quieter times, the prices may be cheaper. If you are under 31 or will be travelling as a group or couple regularly, you may wish to buy a rail card that will allow you to benefit from reduced train fares. Visit www.railcard.co.uk for more information. If you are an international student, then you should contact the UWE Global Student Support Team. They are likely to be your first point of contact for any accommodation inquiries you might have. They are there to help you settle into university life in a new country. Please take your time to explore your options early and please do not be worried about asking them too many questions, as they are there to help you. Their contact details are shown here and they work UK office hours Monday to Friday. Please keep your options open and look at all the different types of accommodation from the diverse areas of the city of Bristol. It is very important that you find accommodation before arriving in the UK, as the university cannot offer you a room while you search. Please arrange temporary accommodation if needed. We have some top tips about the searching process and tenancy agreements. As previously mentioned, if you don't yet have a group formed, then consider the Facebook Find a Flatmate group and join a group already formed. If an agency is renting a 4-bedroom house, they probably want to rent to a whole group rather than individuals. If you are not familiar with many areas of Bristol yet, then you might want to narrow down your search to areas near the campus you are studying at. There is a good Students' Union webpage giving details about some of the popular student areas in Bristol. Just put areas into the Students' Union website search box. Deciding where to live will also impact on the cost of getting to campus. For example, you can buy a weekly bus ticket for about £15, which allows you to travel as many times during the week. You can buy an annual bus pass for about £550. Sometimes the Students' Union has deals with First Bus, so ask us before you buy. You can also walk, cycle or use an e-scooter, which are currently 20p a minute to hire. It is important that you only look for properties based on what you can afford. Don't be tempted to look at properties if the rent is outside of your budget. Check if bills are included in the rent. Is the place furnished? Does it have white goods like a washing machine? You want to try and avoid any financial surprises, so ask all your questions at the start. As a guide, a room in a shared house is about £500 plus bills, and a deposit could be a month's rent. Other fees, like a holding deposit, will vary between agencies, but shouldn't be more than a week's rent. It is important to budget and plan ahead. There are tools to help you with budgeting. and managing your money. Check out the Black Bullion website, which is free for UWE students and has a budget tool too. Remember also to factor in food, travel costs, books and socialising. The UWE website has some really useful information about the cost of living in Bristol, so be sure to check that out so that you know, before you commit to anything, what living and studying in Bristol is going to cost you. Something students, and particularly international students, really need to plan for is having to get a guarantor. There are companies who can help you and act as a guarantor for you, but you'll have to pay for this, so make sure you factor in this fee to your budgeting. There are a few companies we know of that can act as a guarantor for you for a fee of about £300. Search Housing Hand, Rent Guarantor or Your Guarantor and see what they can do for you. It's perfectly normal for a landlord or agency to ask to see your passport or visa, as I explained earlier. Landlords in England are required to check their tenant's immigration status before granting a tenancy agreement to make sure that the tenant has a right to rent. Your tenancy agreement is a legal document, so it's very important you read it through carefully and understand what it says. You should be given time to read it through. You'll be required to sign it, as will the agency or landlord, so check anything you don't understand before you sign. And as I mentioned before, the Advice Centre can read your tenancy agreement before you sign it, so just email it through to us. This page talks through some of the key terms you are likely to hear when looking for accommodation or written in the tenancy agreement. As with anything when we do it for the first time, you might not know the terms or be sure what they mean. Please remember that the Students' Union Advice Team is here to help and can check your contract and help with making sure you are happy with the terms and conditions before signing it. It is important to know about scams and being able to recognise fake adverts and information. Unfortunately, we do hear of students being scammed when looking for accommodation. To prevent this happening, you should look for accommodation in safe places like StudentPad, which I mentioned earlier, and not just websites that advertise a room, as anyone can post a message about that. If you are starting your accommodation search but not in the UK, then if you know anyone in the UK, see if they can help you out. Agencies and landlords have been learning to adapt due to the pandemic and have introduced other ways of showing their properties, so most will have lots of photos and videos of the property. Unfortunately, the Advice Centre cannot look at accommodation for you, but we can help by looking at your tenancy agreement. Do not pay any money until you are 100% sure that the property is real, and if you are in doubt or if something doesn't seem right, then check it out with us in the Advice Centre. Rules and process differ from country to country, so we have created a step-by-step guide to finding a property in the UK. Use it to plan your search, and if you have any questions, get in touch with the Students' Union Advice Centre or the UWE Global Centre. Every year, the Students' Union organises the accommodation fair and will be there to support you when you will be looking for student accommodation in the future. This is the end of the webinar. Thank you for listening, and we hope you found it useful. Please do contact us in the Advice Centre for any questions you might have. Thank you.